Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. So a few ground rules before I do the roll call. I'll introduce each item on the agenda. I'm the acting chair for today. Gary Trendle is out of town, and although he is planning to participate, he may not have a perfectly stable internet connection. So if anyone who wishes to speak, the members who wish to speak, simply raise your hand or say something, and wait until I identify you to go ahead and speak. Not every agenda item will feature public comment, but for items with public comment, after our planning board members have spoken on the topic, I will call on public members of the public who wish to speak on the topic. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call. Okay.
I do think we have a quorum, Mary.
Yes, good. I guess I talked long enough to get a quorum.
Perfect
Okay,
timing.
so I'm going to do a roll call. And I'm just going to call each name and please respond in the affirmative. Okay, Jane Moran.
Jane Moran, present.
Dave Paul.
Dave Paul, present.
Sundar.
Sundar Subramanian, present.
Gary.
Gary Trendle, present.
Fran.
Fran Young, present.
Deb.
Deborah Feinberg, present.
And Mary Larson Marlowe is present. Did I miss anybody?
Shahidul Manan, present.
Oh, Shahidul, welcome for your first meeting.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Excited to
Great.
be here. Thank you.
Great to have you. Okay, terrific. So I'm gonna, let's see, go over to the agenda. Okay. Today on the agenda, we have some administrative items, which includes one ANR for Leonard Street, that we'll cover that first. We're going to cover the update from Trails Committees at the end of the meeting, as well as the minutes. And there are two public hearings, those for Equestrian Realty Trust, which is 190 Ash Street, 0 Chestnut Street, and the second one is 0 Smith Road. Those have been withdrawn, and we simply will vote on them to allow withdrawal without prejudice. Okay? There is not going to be any discussion today of a Wilson Street historic preservation item. That I just want to make that clear because some people may be expecting it. That is tentatively on the agenda for the next meeting. Is that right, John? Okay. And so it will not be discussed tonight. The major hearing, public hearing that will be held tonight is for 52 Wilson Street, Eversource. And this will combine the two hearings, one stormwater management and one earth removal permit. Both of these are related to the same project, so we'll hear them together. Okay, any questions on the agenda? And I also forgot to do a roll call of our staff. John Gelsich.
John Gelsich, present.
Stephanie.
Stephanie Pemberton, present.
And do we have someone from Beta here? Phil?
Phil Paradis and Beta, present.
Great, thank you very much. Any other staff? I don't think so from the names I see. Okay, good.
Madam Chair, just one quick question that I have for our newest member, Mr. Manan. Have you been sworn in?
Hi, John. Yes, I have been.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. Our first item is an ANR plan for Leonard Street. We discussed this at our last meeting, and we had a few comments that Lou was going to take back to the engineer before we were able to sign this. We don't need to open this. It isn't a hearing, correct, John? Yeah. Okay. So I will let Mr. Petrozzi introduce what if anything has changed on the plans since the last time we saw this.
Okay, great. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for all showing up during the summer months. Well, we had two comments at the time we discussed the A&R. At that time, was a small parcel that we set aside that needed to be numbered differently, and that's now numbered Lot 4A to the upper left-hand corner opposite Maple Street Extension. And then the other request from the board was that we remove a reference to formerly Buckland Street that was across our edge of the property. And so we've done that. And the only reference to Buckland Street now that is on the plan remains adjacent to properties that are not part of this A&R plan. We don't own that property, so we're not able to remove that from the plan because that's on prior plans that were signed by this board. So that's pretty much the change. And hope that we can get the plan signed tonight and recorded shortly thereafter.
Thanks, Mr. Petrosi. John, did you have any comments?
No comments.
Okay. And I don't think this had gone through, Phil. That's right.
Nope.
So this, okay. Are there any planning board members who have any comments or questions on this?
No.
Thank you. Anyone? Okay, I don't see any hands.
So I have one question.
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, please.
So now, as I look at 4A, it goes 1A, 2A, 3A, and 4A, and 4A is not buildable. Is that correct, Mr. Pedrosi?
That is correct.
And refresh me from the last meeting, that was so we could look potentially extend.
Well, I'm kind of a forward-thinking type of person when it comes to real estate and landlocked parcels and issues related to lengths of dead-end streets and all of the issues that the fire chief and I have discussed in the past. And we're simply leaving this parcel available in the event someone comes along and needs a second means of access. And we'd be available to, work with that person to grant it at some point down the line. So if we were to just combine that into Lot 3A, that would completely shut out any kind of possible second connection from the balance of Leonard Street, which, as you probably know, extends quite a ways down to the rail trail. And for certain that Mr. Terry at some point is going to want to develop his property. So it's just my little contribution, I guess, to the possibility of having a second means of access or egress from Leonard Street if it does get built any further down the road.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
No.
Okay, so I believe this, we are ready to vote on an endorsement of this plan. So I'll entertain a motion.
Sundar Sivaraman, so moved.
Deborah Feinberg, second.
Thank you. And, okay, so roll call vote. Sundar,
Aye.
Deb,
Deborah Feinberg, yes.
Jane,
Jane Moran, yes.
Dave,
Dave Paul, yes.
Fran,
Randy Young, yes.
Shahudo,
Sorry, Shahidul Manan, yes.
Gary,
Gary Trendle, yes.
and Mary Larson Marlowe is a yes.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Petrosi.
Thank you very much, John. Let me know when it's available to be picked up and I'll swing by.
Yep. Through the chair, for all
Yes,
the
go
board
ahead.
to know, it'll be at Town Hall tomorrow, so stop by when you can. We're open until 7 o'clock.
How many signatures do you need on it?
5.
5. Okay. First 5 people tomorrow.
Great, thanks very much. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Our second item is, we need to vote on these separately. We are going to accept the withdrawal without prejudice for, where's the first one? Hang on. Okay, here we go. The first one is the preliminary subdivision plan, 190 Ash Street, 0 Chestnut Street, Equestrian Realty Trust. So I'd entertain a motion to accept their withdrawal without prejudice.
So moved.
Dave Paul, second.
Thank you. Okay, voting on this, Sundar,
Sundar Sevaraman, yes.
Deb,
Deborah Feinberg, yes.
Jane,
Jane Moran, yes.
Dave,
Dave Paul, yes.
Fran,
Randy Young, yes.
Shahidul,
Shahidul Manan, yes.
Gary,
Gary Trundle, yes.
Mary Larson Marlowe is a yes. And the second one is the preliminary subdivision plan for 0 Smith Road, Equestrian Realty Trust. I'll entertain a motion to accept the withdrawal without prejudice.
Sundar Sevaraman, so moved.
Dave Paul, second.
Thank you. Sundar,
Sundar Sevaraman, yes.
Deb,
Deborah Feinberg, yes.
Jane,
Jane Moran, yes.
Dave,
Dave Paul, yes.
Fran,
Randy Young, yes.
Shahidul,
Shahidul Manan, yes.
and Gary.
Gary Trundle, yes.
Mary Larson Marlowe is a yes. All right. And now I would like to vote on opening the public hearings for 52 Wilson Street, the stormwater management permit application, and the earth removal permit application for Eversource Energy.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Sundar,
Yes. Sundar Sevaraman, yes.
Deb,
Deborah Feinberg, yes.
Jane,
Jane Moran, yes.
Dave,
Dave Paul, yes.
Fran,
Randy Young, yes.
Shahidul,
Shahidul Manan, yes.
Gary,
Gary Trundle, yes.
and Mary Larson Marlowe is a yes. We are now open. Okay. Now we can get down to it. I see Tracy Adamski here, also Jim Blackburn. And are there other people here speaking for this project?
I think we also have Mike Chu, who is our project engineer, who will be
Okay.
representing our group.
Good evening,
everybody.
Hi.
And we also have Dan Boulay and Timothy Grace from Ty and Bond.
Okay, great. Dan Boulay and Timothy Grace. Okay. All right. So my understanding from the materials that have been distributed thus far is that there is a new project not related to previous earth removal and stormwater management permits that we discussed a year or 2 or 3 ago. So this is a new one. And who would like to give an introduction? And John, I assume you can pull up the plans for them to refer to.
Tracy or Mike, do you want to try to do the introduction and I'll step in as needed?
Sure, I can do that. I guess if it's easier, I can also show my screen. I guess just let me know how you would like to go about that.
Through the chair, I think it might be easier for the applicant to share their screen so they can
Sure,
do what they need to.
Okay.
definitely.
Let me change that setting. All right, you should be able to now.
Great, thanks, John. I'm just waiting to, oh, here we go, share screen. Great, so I'm assuming you can, whoops, hold on. Share screen. All right, so I'm assuming you can see my screen here. We have an ortho photo up right now.
Yes.
So this is the site at 52 Wilson. Here's Wilson Road to the west of the site. North is up here. The previous project that we permitted was on the the majority of it was on the opposite side of the site at 55 Wilson. The work that's being proposed with this application is essentially the paving of an existing gravel access road. So you can see the access road in through here that provides access to the rear portions of the site and the facilities back here. And the proposed project is to, provide better access for the vehicles that are using that access road, through all weathers, because now it's a gravel access road. Also, at the request of the fire department, we are proposing a 15-foot access road that comes into here and ties into this existing paved road, so that the fire department can have an additional access through the rear of the property in this location. So the access road through here is approximately 875 linear feet. It's a 24-foot wide access road. The emergency access road, so the connector through here, is 15 feet wide. The remainder of the project includes upgrades to the stormwater management system to treat, to contain both the quantity of stormwater through the various storms up to the 100-year storm, and treat the stormwater runoff from the new paved areas. In addition, there's going to be some lighting and water main improvements that are included in this area. I can go to the plans here. So if you recall from, the ortho photo, the access road came in through here, and here's that, central area. So this part of the access road is being paved, and access is being provided to the different structures that are on the site through here. And we are proposing stormwater basins along the edge here of the access road and also through here. The lines that you see here, and here is where the access road, the emergency access road bears off. The lines that you see here are related to isolated vegetated wetlands that are under the jurisdiction, under the local bylaw with the Conservation Commission, and we are in front of them tomorrow night. And these show their the different buffer zones. There's a no disturb zone, as well as the 100-foot zone, which is the full area or the full width of their jurisdiction. And I'll just show you here. This is the additional extent of that emergency access. We're showing the turning radii here for a truck that can, the fire truck that can come up through here and access the rear of the site again. So the permits that you have in front of you are for stormwater management, because we will be impacting greater than an acre of land. We anticipate that this will impact with the new construction of the access road and the stormwater system about 2.1 acres. And we also have submitted an earth removal permit similar to what the earth removal permit that we submitted for the liquefaction. There's no material mining being proposed here, but there are materials that will need to be removed from the site in order to accommodate the construction. And I don't know if you have other questions. I guess from the stormwater management system, we do meet the requirements of the stormwater permit. We're not asking for, the stormwater bylaws. We're not asking for waivers, and we meet the requirements of the Massachusetts DEP stormwater standards.
Okay. John Gelsich, do you have any preliminary comments?
Yep. So I guess we're going to talk about these two, as it makes sense, together, because it's the same project, just two different permits. We've received some responses to the questions that town council has sent to the applicant. So for those of you who haven't taken a deep look into the file folder, town council reviewed the application, submitted some questions to me. I sent it along to the applicant. The applicant responded, and I put those responses into the shared folder. So take a look at those because I think that definitely helps out. Town council had some other questions that they wanted to talk about. We don't have to talk about them right now, and I'll probably forward those to the applicant. It happened today, so I didn't have a chance to send it out. Just some follow-up questions to their responses. And then one of the main things that town council and I talked about is with the earth removal bylaw, there's a requirement that there is a 100-foot undisturbed buffer surrounding the site. Now, this is a weird situation because obviously you can't have a 100-foot buffer completely around the site because then you couldn't access it. So the way that it's been interpreted in the past, for the most part, is that every earth removal permit application has requested a waiver from this for site access. So that's the path we think we need to go down for this application as well. So I know a waiver has not been requested, but because of the way that the bylaw is written, it kind of necessitates this waiver. And that's something we should look at moving forward on Zach. But where it stands right now is that's something that town council and I have agreed that we should probably ask the applicant to request. And then the only other comment I had aside from that is an issue with stormwater. We've had a lot of issues this summer with rain and stormwater flows that have been going into Hopkinton Reservoir. This is not one of the culprits. The trails and Legacy Farms, Northwest Villages are the main culprits, but this is in the same area. So I am recommending we just take a really good look at the stormwater prevention, make sure everything is treated on site, and that we're not going to have sedimentation of Hopkinton Reservoir because that has been a big issue this summer. We've had coordination with town of Ashland and they're not happy with it. We're not happy with it. It's happened several times because of the rain, volume of rain, and the frequency of the storm. So my recommendation is just to really take a good look, make sure that nothing is going to happen, and then maybe put some provisions into the conditions if necessary to mitigate any problems should they arise once it's constructed.
Thank you, John. Did this go through a pre-meeting with staff?
Yes, it did.
Okay, thank you. And I did not see a letter from Beta. So am I assuming that it has not yet been reviewed by Beta?
That is forthcoming.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll have it. We will have it for next meeting. Hopefully we'll have it by the end of this week.
Okay, fair enough. So keeping this on a preliminary level then, knowing that we do not yet have comments from Beta, particularly on stormwater management, but we have all had a chance to look at the town council comments. Do any planning board members have some questions or comments on this initial review? Go ahead, Fran.
I have a question, Madam Chair. Tracy, I think I'll direct it toward or maybe the group. The first is the elevation change. Everything flows down toward Wilson Street from the site of where the proposed work is being done. Is that correct? Just from like elevation delta?
Under existing conditions, yes.
Okay. And then my second question is, when in your introductory remarks, you talked about moving materials. Could you define materials? Are we just talking dirt, or what materials were you referring to when you talk about the earth removal?
So it's the material that makes up the road. We need to dig down some so that we can put in a proper base for the paved road. So there's materials that need to be moved as part of that, as well as for the stormwater basins. Those need to be dug out so that we can get down to elevation to allow for the storage. So there's material in there that needs to be removed as well. As you could see from the site photos, there's not a lot of topsoil or vegetation within that area. So it's gravel and what material happens to be there.
Thank you.
And I'm joined here by our engineers who developed the stormwater management system. But to John's comment previously, so currently this is a gravel access road, and there is minimal, if any, stormwater controls. And gravel will have a fair amount of runoff associated with it. So once this project is constructed, there will be a stormwater system that is treating the water, holding the water on site, and the discharge point is actually up and away from Wilson Road.
Thank you. I was going to ask whether or not there was any stormwater management on the site already, and evidently there is not. So these are all new for that particular area. Yes?
Yes.
Madam Chair, my last question, and maybe to you and the group, is this something that would require a site visit? Or is this something we're just going to address via a normal meeting?
I think a site visit could be a good idea.
I would be in support of such an effort.
So I don't know if everyone can be available. We can probably get a quorum there, though. So let's talk about a site visit. Either the 31st or the 7th, Saturday morning. So show of hands, who can be available on the 31st, including, of course, the project. I can be.
31st early.
Okay, that's
What time through the shade? What time?
we usually do it 9-ish, but what time works for you? 9:30?
9:30, sure.
9:30, okay. So, okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think. Can make it on the 31st. Yeah.
To the chair, what is the duration of the visit?
Usually it's about an hour. We just walk around and see the lay of the land so that the plans make more sense in our minds.
I'm okay with both the days.
Okay, both dates are fine. Okay, how about those who can make it on August 7th? 2, 3, 4. Fran, you cannot.
No, and I'm a bubble person on the 31st.
And Gary, you're out both dates? Okay.
Yes, I'm out both dates.
Okay. So it looks like we could do either one. Dave, we're going to miss on the first date. Deb, I don't recall whether or not you had your hand raised for July 31st. Yes or no? No? Okay. So we would miss 3 people on the 31st, and I think a few more can attend on August 7th. So let's try for August 7th. Does that work for everyone from Eversource? Obviously we don't need the whole contingent there, but all right. 9:30, August 7th. Good. Thank you. Thank you, Fran. I'd forgotten about that. So I had another question. You referred to the 15-foot wide emergency access road. How long is that portion of the road?
About 85 feet.
85? Okay, thanks. And I'm not quite sure on the plans, but it looked like it was within the no disturb zone for the wetlands. Is that correct?
No, we were able to cite that out of the no disturb zone.
Okay, that's good. What types of vehicles use this access road currently on a regular basis? Is it large construction vehicles, or is it small, smaller? What is it used for?
Madam Chair, this is Mike, project engineer, Eversource. So the plant predominantly uses work vehicles to access these parts of the plant. In Tracy's plan here, We've got a pump building that we'll be extending the driveway to, and a bulk storage building that we would be extending a driveway to, but predominantly kind of a work vehicle, F-150, F-250 type vehicle.
Okay, predominantly that. Some delivery vehicles as well, larger trucks or no?
Depending on the type of maintenance that we'd be seeking to be doing in those areas, certainly you might see a mini kind of cherry pick. So maybe a 350 or an F-450 type of vehicle, heavy duty.
We occasionally use that kind of cleared area in the center for laydown as we've been doing some of the bigger projects. So occasionally we'll take a tractor trailer up there. It's a little bit difficult to maneuver because of some of the existing equipment down by the vaporizers. And you'll see that when you walk out there. So I don't expect in the long term that we'll continue to use that as the projects wind down, but they occasionally do see a tractor trailer up there.
Okay, good. Thank you. And does anyone else have any comments or questions right now? Go ahead, Deb. You're on mute. Okay, good.
I'm wondering if Tracy can put the plan back up on the board, because I just have a couple questions that just might work best if they're pointed
So this was the access, that 15-foot access road. Do you want me to go to the main?
Okay, go to the main plan that showed both of them, if you don't mind, please.
Yep.
So you talked about a discharge area, and where can you point where that is? Because I haven't had enough familiarity with the plan. I'm sorry.
It's out here.
And what happens out there? So that's still part of your property, I take it.
Mhm.
And where would be the edge of your site? Where would be the edge of the property in relationship to the discharge area?
So I'm flipping back to the ortho photo just because it'll be a little bit easier to see. So here was the road and that discharge. And I'm going to ask Tim Grace to correct me if I'm wrong, but is in general in this location here. So there's still some distance.
So in relationship to Fran's question, that discharge spot, it's uphill from Wilson Street?
Correct. Wilson Street is down here.
And sort of in continuation of relationship to those questions is, so water will only flow there after it's been treated. What kinds of quantities of water would be distributed into that area? Like 100-year flood, 50-year flood, or, just your regular rain flow?
Tim, can you answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way it's been designed now, that outlet doesn't see any flows until we hit significant storms like the 50 or even the 100-year storm. But the 2, 10, and 25 are all retained in that system. And even at the 50-year, you're still seeing minimal outflow from that pipe. It's not until you get to the 100-year storm that you're going to see any significant flows.
So I also, just one more question, I believe that just helped me understand it a little bit better. Thanks for your patience. So in your distribution of your distribution swales where the water is going to flow, how deep are those basins? And because they're quite substantial. If I understand the drawing right, I'm not really, I don't have a scale on me, or I'm just wondering, I mean, the building is quite small in relationship to the retention basins that are being formed. So did you expect them to have quite a bit of water? And is that primarily because the soils are so bad?
That is exactly why those are so big. Yes, the soils up there are very poor. And like Tracy said earlier, it's all gravel up there now. So historically, we haven't gotten a ton of infiltration up on that hill. So the reason we made the basins that size is so that we could accommodate more significant storm events up there and minimize the runoff that's actually leaving the site. They are about 4 feet deep. But again, that's because we were trying to mitigate significant storm events, and the entire area is basically impervious at this point. The pavement really doesn't change that much up there from a stormwater perspective because, like Tracy said earlier, there isn't any stormwater management now, and we're going from a gravel surface to a paved surface, which isn't that big of a difference.
And I'm not, John, I'm not I'm not sure I'm supposed to talk about what the town council asked about.
I mean, you can.
So I was just wondering, sort of as an exploratory question, nothing significant at all, but where would this tank be, this unknown tank be, and what kind of issues will it cause when upon discovery?
Well, I'll talk to that a little bit, just so folks are kind of understand the background. When the plant was originally built, it actually had 2 underground reservoirs, which were essentially carved out of the granite. And so there's actually 2 abandoned, we'll say, reservoirs up top there that in the very early 70s were abandoned. And that's when they built the first 2 storage tanks on the 55 Wilson Street side, so the west side of Wilson Street, followed up by the 3rd tank in the later 70s. And so those have been abandoned in that location from the 70s, and they were backfilled with some aggregate mix, primarily sand and gravel. And so we really don't anticipate digging and finding those at all. I mean, we've done other work up in that area. We've never encountered them. Really, they were carved out of the granite. And so it's not like we'll be excavating and come across some steel or really even a concrete structure out there. So we don't anticipate that being at all a concern up in that area. You can see on the right-hand side of the drawings, there's some squares and rectangles. Those were some foundation pads from the original plant, some concrete pads. Now, if we were excavating that area, we may come across those smaller foundations, and certainly we would just remove those out of the way. But we are not working in that area, and so we don't anticipate we'll hit any structures. So we don't. I saw that, when we addressed the questions from town council, we were a little bit, I think, surprised by the questions, and then it kind of occurred to us that folks probably don't understand the history up there, and what we did identify it as, I think, an abandoned tank, and certainly that probably created a lot of these questions, when realistically in our minds that they're probably 10 to 20 feet deep, and we wouldn't expect to even come anywhere close to them in this construction.
So when you say a tank, definition of a tank, you're saying that a tank is located 10 to 20 feet down that is steel, or that is in the granite concave shape?
What they did is they actually carved the granite into these deep reservoirs. They're about 180 foot deep. I don't recall the exact dimension and width, but I think they were close to 60 foot in diameter. And so they were carved out of the granite, which was actually the at the end of the day, that was the fault of them, is that the granite has cracks in it, and so that it was leaking product, and so that ultimately result in them being abandoned. And so there is no steel structure that we're aware of down there. There's no concrete structure. It was just a granite cavern, essentially.
Okay, thank you very much.
That does help clear it up a little bit. Any other questions or comments? So I think that after our site visit, will you be coming to speak with us on August 9th, or will it be the meeting after that? Because it depends on when Beta can do their review as well.
So through the chair, it would be up to the planning board to decide when they can come back, but
Okay.
I don't believe August 9th is super full right now.
Okay. What's on the agenda for August 9th?
Let me pull it up. So August 9th, we have Zach and Design Review Board appointments. potentially the Wilson Street Historic Preservation discussion, the Connolly Farm Definitive Subdivision hearing continuation, and opening hearing for Turkey Ridge Estates.
Okay.
See night.
Madam Chair, just a thought, but given the site walk is only 2 days before, we might want to push to the next meeting after that, which I think is the 23rd.
I think it's the 23rd, yeah.
Through the chair, the board had discussed canceling the 23rd.
Right. Vacation day.
Well, where do we stand on the 23rd? Are we going to, enough of us going to be here?
I'll be here.
I'll be here.
I'll be here.
I'm
Yeah,
hoping to be
great.
gone. I'm hoping to be gone,
Yeah.
but it all
Gary,
depends.
you're going to be here?
Yes.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Dave, did you say yes?
I'd say yes. If I have to be there, I will.
You have to be there. And Shahidul, you said yes? Yep. Okay. Okay, yeah, so we definitely have the potential for a quorum on the 23rd. How do you feel about rescheduling to that date? I'm not sure who is speaking for the group, Tracy, whomever. Yeah, Jim. Okay, so the 23rd. So that'll give us the chance for the August 7th site visit, and then plenty of time to review things with Phil and other colleagues at Beta. Okay.
Could I just confirm with my group? I mean, Mike and Tracy, will we have the ability? I don't see it being a problem. I won't be able to attend the site visit, but will we be able to get coverage from our group on that? I just don't want to, especially with the date being a little further out, I just want to make sure we'll have coverage for that.
Yeah, I should be okay to cover down on that.
Okay, and we can always have Mike Geronis or somebody else attend if that's necessary. I just want to make sure we have somebody, so. Okay,
Have somebody from Ty and Bond there.
very good.
Okay. And on the 7th, where should we park? Should we come to the 52 Wilson Street side of things?
Yeah, that would actually make sense, Mike. We'll have them meet at the site office. That way you can provide PPE and we'll need the FR smocks. So on 50 on the 55 Wilson Street side, so the side that the tanks are and the construction trailers, and we can send something to the board that is just a little kind of pictogram on where to go. But that first trailer there, we have our site offices, and we could welcome you there and get you set up before we go across the street to that area.
Okay, sounds good. So you can send it to John and he'll get it out to all of us.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, so August 23rd on the agenda. And is there anything else that we need to do, John?
You actually need to vote to continue it. to August.
Okay, and there's also the, you had mentioned the waiver needed for the earth removal permit for the site access portion of the, not to have the 100-foot buffer. So if you could do that by the 23rd as well, then we'll have it all covered. Okay. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to August 23rd.
So move.
Second.
Thank you.
Discussion?
Discussion?
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
go ahead.
Mary, there was some, I think, public comment, Ms. Towner, that's submitted an email. And I just wanted to, I don't know if Ms. Towner is on, but I don't know if there was an opportunity for anybody in the public to.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you, Fran. And Ms. Towner, yes, I did read through the email. I hadn't seen you on before. I looked for you, but I didn't see it. With the fact that Beta has not yet reviewed the stormwater management application, I thought we would defer that. But if you would like to just make a quick comment, and we will be able to keep these in mind for the stormwater management review on August 23rd, along with Phil's Beta comments. Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Towner.
I just joined, so I'm not really sure what's going on here.
Okay. Yeah, so we had just had a preliminary overview of the plan, including a preliminary view of the stormwater management plans that are going into this project on the other side of Wilson Street from the previous projects that we've reviewed. The reviews by our engineers, Beta, have not yet been done on the stormwater management, so we did not discuss any of that in detail. But we do have your email and the pictures that you sent as well. So
when would be the appropriate time to comment on the material that was posted?
So my suggestion is that we keep that until August 23rd meeting, if that is convenient for you, because that's when we will be discussing all of the stormwater management details. And after Mr. Paradise from Beta has had a chance to review the whole stormwater management plan and has his recommendations as well.
And what about the site visit? Is that open to the public?
Absolutely it is. August 7th at 9:30 a.m. And we are meeting at the 55 Wilson Street office. Okay. So please join us if you may. Yes, Jim?
May I just make a comment just for anyone that does visit? We will need a identification. I kind of skipped over that, and
Oh, yes.
we need to. I'll send it in the email to John, just in any of the other requirements, but we'll have to have proper footwear, closed toe, so whether it's sneakers or something that's just, we don't want flip flops, high heels, that type of thing, just for safety. So I'll provide that in the email to John, but just to clarify, we definitely need some form of identification for everyone.
Is there some sort of waiver form that we signed ahead of time before the last site visit? I can't remember.
We will, we have them. Usually we give it as part of kind of like the introduction or the orientation when folks show up. It's just probably a couple items to read understand and just sign it. I can try to get a copy to send over.
And you won't tell us that we've already missed our opportunity.
Promise not to. Absolutely.
Well, just to that point, I thought it was important that all parties are aware of Ms. Towner's comment in her email, so the applicant, Beta, and this board can be cognizant of it when we convene again later on in August.
Absolutely. And I assume John will be sending the email to Mr. Paradise if he has not yet already. So, as well as to the applicant.
I mean, the only comment I would make is some of my comments had to do with some of the materials that were submitted being out of date, not current, and I don't know if we delay discussing them until the 23rd, it might be might not give the applicant time to respond. Some of them, I don't know if that would be. Has the comments been given to the applicant?
I'll check. Thank you. So John, do you want to read the comments, particularly in regards to the GIS?
Sure.
Just to give you a sense. Yes, go ahead, Gary.
Madam Chair, make a recommendation, and maybe if John could just forward those to the applicant, then if there's something that they need to address before the next meeting, they can do so. But I don't know if we necessarily need to get into all those details tonight.
Right.
And it might be easier just to provide them that information, give them a chance to address them. That should probably be incorporated into Phil's assessment as well. And then that way everyone's aware of comments and concerns and whatever else. And on the 23rd, we can go deep on that stuff.
Sounds good.
Yep, that makes sense. Okay, so we'll just forward that information to you, and you can address it at the meeting on August 23rd.
So through the chair, just
And if you
a
have any-
point
go ahead.
on that. I hope Time Bond knows this at this point. They've done a lot of business in town, but on the meeting invite on the town's Google Calendar, there is a shared file that is the planning board's memo that all the planning board members get, and it's got a link to the shared folder for all of the hearings and items on each agenda. And that's posted every Thursday before the meeting. So if you ever need any files, public, applicant, planning board, you can find it all there. But I will send that memo directly to the applicant and to Beta so that they have the links to the shared folders.
Thank you. And if you have any questions or comments in the meantime, definitely correspond with John, in the ensuing weeks. Okay?
Madam Chair, I had a point of clarification, if I may.
Yes.
For John, you had mentioned early in the beginning about the sedimentation problem. And I'm just curious to know if there is any more information available about that context, and especially what were the efforts in conjunction with Ashland that you alluded to? It doesn't have to be now. You can send something later if you have.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to give me a call, I can certainly go over it on the phone. I don't know if it makes sense to write it up in an email, but if anyone has any questions about that, they can certainly give me a call tomorrow or any day this week at my office.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So, any more discussion prior to voting on the continuance? No. Okay. So we are voting on the motion.
And actually, through the chair, one clarification on that. It said to continue the hearing, but there are two hearings. So I just wanted to make sure that we're voting on one and then the other, or if we're trying to vote on them separately to make that, or together to make that clear.
My intention was that both hearings are being handled at the same time. So the continuance was for both. So whoever did the motion and second, can you accept that friendly amendment? Okay.
Accepted.
Deb and Sundar indicated yes?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you. All right, so voting. Deb,
Yes.
Jane,
Jane Marin, yes.
Sundar,
Sundar Sivaram, yes.
Dave,
Dave Paul, yes.
Fran,
Randy, yes.
Shahadu,
Edilmanan, yes.
Gary,
Gary Trindle, yes.
and Mary Larson Marlowe is a yes. So we will see some of you on August 7th and see the rest of you probably on August 23rd. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see here. All right, our next item is the Trails Committee update and Trails TCMC, Trails Coordination and Management Committee update. So Jane and Dave, flip a coin. Which one wants to start?
Ladies first.
Sure, why not? John, I had sent John some maps that we can work off of later, but when he's pulling those up, I'll just do a very brief introduction.
What one would you like me to pull up first?
The one that starts at the Milford parking lot.
Is that the key plan or the resources overall?
I think it's the one that includes the key plan. If you can tell if that shows the parking lot. But while he's working on that, the Upper Charles Trail Committee was created by the Select Board 9 years ago, back in July of 2012. And over the years, working together, nope, that's not it. And working together with various committees and boards, including CPC, we've managed to accumulate various properties that we have envisioned could be of value to potential trail routes. Unlike our neighbors, Holliston and Milford, we don't own most of the rail bed, as do those other towns. So we were forced to look at other options, and that included purchasing private properties as they became available, and also using town-owned properties. And as you can see briefly from this map, all of the areas in green are town-owned properties. So we feel like we've really done an extensive job exhausting all these options. Our charge is to come up with various routes from the Milford Upper Charles parking lot through the eastern part of Hopkinton. It must include the Center Trail, and then we would end up at the Hopkinton State Park. So that's a very brief summary. Bringing you up to speed, fast forward, we have this very conceptual map. I would say a lot of the properties we've already nailed down, a lot of the easements we've already nailed down, and we continue to work with private properties along the way and other interested property owners to gather more parcels that we envision using in our trail. So starting at the Milford parking lot, which is down here by right here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, or share screen maybe.
So Jane, I'm sharing my screen. Is there a place you want?
Okay, so at the Milford parking lot, at the far right-hand side, where the Milford parking lot is, over the town line. Nope, over the town line. Yep. Starting at the Milford parking lot, we envision the trail going through town open space in Milford first, and then crossing over the town boundary. Yeah. Okay, good. So then we would cross over the town boundary, and again, keeping to the town-owned open space, and end up with this big first purple spot. The purple spots indicate where we would have bike crossings and things like that. That is the College Rock Park. We would cross College Road, College Street at that point, and again, continuing north, staying in town-owned property, continue to the next parcel, which, yep, keep going. Right in there, that's where Norman and other parties are negotiating with Ron Nations, the builder, to get us an easement through that planned development. And continuing to the west out to Hayden Row, to the second pink dot, we would be traveling north on Hayden Row. Now, we don't know, there's multiple options here. We could continue traveling north on Hayden Row, or we could cross the street and travel down Grant Street. We already have an easement, a tentative easement with the Milford Water Company that we can traverse through their property. And then to the bottom part, that dark green spot on the very bottom, that's town-owned property that then enters town-owned property. Yep. And it continues all the way through where it says phase 7 to the back of the Hughes property. I believe it's 191 Hayden Row. And we would exit to Hayden Row again, and then travel in a northerly direction along Hayden Row toward 147 Hayden Row, and cross just the north side of Waterfresh Farms to the Marathon School property. Now, this isn't really accurate, because our agreement with the school committee, when we went before them 4 or 5 years ago, when we were working with the Marathon Tadaro property, would allow us to use to build a trail, which is an allowable use, through the buffer zone. which would stay away from the schools themselves, but would allow the trail to continue in around, completely surrounding those, both the Irvine Tadaro property. We can go to the next slide, John. Which would then bring us to the EMC Park. And again, we would travel through the EMC Park, across Hayden Row again, and enter the school campus. From there, and I'll touch on that briefly at the end, but we're going to, the plan is to go through the campus trail connector, would go through the school campus project property and hook up with the center trail. And we would follow the center trail all the way out to Main Street. And many years ago, we worked with the DOT, the town officials, the town engineers, Mass Trails, everyone you can imagine, to come up with the multi-use trail concept that is now incorporated in the downtown corridor, that would travel through Main Street and end up at the town common area. Then we can go to the next slide. That's the downtown area. All those yellow dots indicate crossing areas. Then we would enter through the rear of the center school, traversing in the back of center school through, again, town-owned property. And we're in negotiations with some private property owners at the very bottom of toward East Main Street, where we would again enter town-owned property. That's that big green spot just before the pink one, cross East Main Street, and then cross Route 135, and then cross and enter where the Marathon Museum is going to go. That's that large green parcel. Is there another map that would take us to Hopkinton State Park? Yep. Then we have entered into an agreement with Legacy Farms, Roy McDowell, to combine his concept of his trail network with ours. We would enter a joint partnership with them, cross Legacy Farms North and enter into DCR property. We've come up with a tentative agreement with Tennessee Gas for an easement, crossing a very short piece of where their gas pipeline is, that will allow us to enter into the DCR property. And then that last pink dot gets us closer to the Hopkinton State Park. And then the last slide, I think, or the next area. This shows us traversing the DCR property. And again, we have an agreement with DCR. They're very excited to work with us and have us enter their property at the rear of their property on Howe Street. That would take us into the back entrance of Hopkinton State Park, where then we would join up with the Ashland Upper Charles Trail. They're planning on ending their route into Hopkinton State Park as well. So that's the very, very quick version of our conceptual plan, which we continue to work on. To bring us up to speed currently, we recently completed our Mass Trails Grant Award, and we will shortly be receiving our completed engineering studies for the school campus connector. And that takes us from Hayden Row through the school campus connector to connect to the center trail. The next step after that is to take those engineering studies and make an application with various grants, possibly 2. We're not sure which ones we're going to be using, but we'll probably be making multiple applications for construction, for actual construction of that phase of the school campus connector. We also plan to move forward with the Mass Trails grant application as a separate process and apply for engineering studies through the EMC Park and traversing through the Marathon School. So we just take it one step at a time, and whichever seems to be the next logical step, that seems to be the route that we've followed, and we'll probably continue to do that. So that is the very quick version, a very quick update of where we are.
Well, that's terrific, Jane. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I'm not going to put you on the spot and say, so when will it all be built?
We've been at it for 10 years and it could take another 10. But both towns of Milford and Holliston took over 25, 27 years to complete it beginning to end. So we figure that we're kind of right on track. These projects are huge.
Absolutely. Okay.
But if we can get one piece at a time finished, if we can get that school campus connector connected to this center trail that would connect to the downtown corridor, we would be thrilled with that.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gary.
Jane, great work. And I know how complicated it is to weave all this together. I just had one question on the stretch that's going to run along Hayden Row. Any idea, have you guys started to talk about which side of the street that might go on, or is there space within the right of way, or
well, currently the Dave Del Toro, our town engineer, and VHB are investigating that. They seem to think we have enough right of way, and we would prefer using the side that does not have the telephone poles, but that's yet to be determined. We have to consider water mains and fire hydrants and that kind of good stuff. So, but very good question.
So it wouldn't be on the street, you're saying?
No, it would be separated.
Okay.
There would be a separation.
Okay, great.
Between the road and the trail.
That's great. Any other questions for Jane?
Through the chair, Jane, great work. And thank you for working through that. I'm with Mary, can't wait to see it happen. One thing I was wondering, the timeline that you mentioned, is there any part of it that is currently planned, or you think are most of it are still TBD? I just wanted to understand how much of it is kind of planned out time horizon wise. And of course, a big part of it is still unknown, I'm sure.
Right. Well, the two pieces that are planned are the downtown corridor piece. That's planned. So that will be incorporated into the whole outbuilding of the downtown corridor. The second piece that we just received our engineering studies for, and we're going to be applying for the construction piece. That's a definite going forward. We just don't know the date of completion for that yet.
Got it.
So that will be through the campus, through this, the whole campus, the school campus on the west side. And our next step is to begin on the east side through the marathon, EMC Park, through the Marathon School.
Thank you.
Graphically build it out. You're welcome. Our goal is to have, a path so that we can combine all of the schools together. With the school committee is really excited about that, and so are we. We think that that would be a real drawing point to pull the community together.
Ms. Towner, you had a comment, a question?
I had a question. Have you considered your construction techniques in terms of the use of heavy equipment versus other techniques that paving versus gravel techniques that require a wider swath of land to be cleared versus
Sure. In order to qualify for these grants for these Class 5 trail systems, they really look positively on connectivity. So our ultimate goal is to join with the Milford Bike Trail. Are you familiar with the Milford Bike Trail?
Yes.
Okay, so it would be similar to the Milford Bike Trail. And then we would take it through the east part of Hopkinton, ultimately ending up in Hopkinton State Park. So that's the ultimate goal. Whether we're able to accomplish that or not depends on the funding sources. And that depends on the state grants and the federal grants. And, you know, where we are and how we qualify and where we get in the queue. And if we don't get in the queue, and what do we do?
My question had more to do with, especially some of the open space that's been contributed by developers, which is, you know, not like the Milford Trail that's already cleared. You have a rail bed there, but that land that is, you know, somewhat of a limited swath of land snaking through developments.
Sure.
So for those types of connections and development of trails there, do you foresee coming in with heavy equipment and like clearing the swath of land and trees and everything, or is there the possibility of less invasive construction techniques where you, probably more expensive, but where you can maybe have you know, gravel trails? I know I've been on some of the trail walks. I can't remember which one it was, but you know, some of the natural trails are maintained versus paving.
Well, if we do go with the paving, we're looking for a porous pavement, which would meet sustainability requirements, and that there would not be runoff. The problem with the gravel and the stone dust is that there is a lot of runoff, and the Conservation Commission and other state agencies are very fussy about, especially because, as you mentioned, a lot of these lands have wetlands in them, and you have to be, the guidelines are very, very strict. So everything that we do has to go before the Conservation Commissions and the DEP, and we have to be able to pass the ENFs, which is environmental neutral, you know, and all of that good stuff. So there are all kinds of guidelines out there that we have to meet before anything is approved. I don't know if that answers your question, but the goal is
Not really, because I was more asking about, you know, the clearing techniques. Are you, you know, do you have
well,
to?
I do know that in a lot of these trails that I've observed, they don't go in there with the big machinery. They have special machinery that they go in there because it is in wetlands and other issues, other sensitive issues. So it's all relative to the specific area that you're working in. It's hard to say. Some areas may be acceptable to larger equipment and other areas would not.
So Jane, just
Really
to follow up,
space sensitive.
Jane, just to add on to Kate's question, I think there'll be a certain width. Would it be like 10 feet or something that the
Yes.
trail?
Yeah, in
Okay.
order to have this qualify for the state funding, it has to be 10 to 12 feet wide.
So I think that's probably a good segue to
Yeah.
my presentation.
Right,
We could-
because Dave's committee does something very, very different, Katie,
Right.
you might be interested in.
Exactly.
Great,
Mhm.
Dave. Please go ahead.
So you're gonna be okay with presenting, John?
Yep, he's got something up.
Okay, great. Let me,
Dave,
Right,
unless you want to present, so you can
no,
point.
no, that's fine, as long as you don't mind me hitting you, next screen. What's the proper word I'm looking for? Next slide, thank you, 18 times. All right, so just a pre-qualification here. This this is just a draft version. We've been working, the committee has gotten together recently to discuss a bunch of ideas, but we haven't focused too much on a PowerPoint presentation. So that we had one meeting a while ago where we put together one, Lisa Jackson did, and I just took that and basically added a bunch of stuff and tweaked it. And that's what you're seeing now. So we'll be working further on this, and we'll come back to you with a final, not a final, it's never final, but you know, a more verified version of this. But I'm going to, as Jane said, a couple of things. We do very different things than the Upper Charles Committee. First of all, we're responsible for all of the trails in the town. I'll get into the purpose and goals in a second. But also, Jane is very defined, pretty much the north-south corridor of along Route 85 and Hayden Row, and then a branch roughly along 135 to the east, where the trails you're going to see in my slide will be all over town. There's a lot that are not connected. As Jane can attest to, it's very hard to connect trails. There's a lot of property concerns involved. So we have to do a lot of collaboration, and progress may be slow, but we just want to make steady progress. You can see I've got 6 bullet points there that I'm going to go through roughly in the slides, go over the purpose and goals, and then talk about some collaboration and just give you a view of some of the major trails, and then look at some of the specific trails with the connectivity and improvements that have been done, and talk about a little bit about bridges and signage. So go ahead, John, please. So this is just the general statement that we're working on. The purpose is to ensure that the town has a wealth of open spaces available for public enjoyment, and to coordinate with various public and private entities to provide and maintain public trails. So that's kind of like our goal, our task. Okay, John. I'm not going to read through all of these. You guys can, John, the slide is going to be available on the share. Is that true, or?
Yep, this whole presentation is in the admin folder, admin items folder.
So yeah, I'll probably kind of go through this fairly quickly, but any details you guys need to see, you can go in and read them. But I think roughly we're created as an umbrella of the selectmen, coordinating. You'll see the word coordinating a lot, right? So as people have heard, there's about 3 or 4 different trails committees involved in Hopkinton, and you'll see some of that in a bit. And to coordinate the planning of the trail networks, and to work with the residents on the trails, and I have a slide on that as well, and to function as a liaison with the public and private utilities. So once again, a lot of collaborating. So go ahead, John. So this is, I put this, there's about 3 slides on collaboration, and this is probably the most important one, collaborating with the neighbors, because we're going to be, we receive requests for neighbors for trail improvements and connections, and we also have improvements and connections that we want to propose ourselves that we need to inform the neighbors and kind of get their buy-in, because it's kind of in their backyard. Some of it, is private properties, most of it's public, so that's just one of the challenges we have. Go ahead, John, please. And you guys can just save the questions to the end, and I can answer them. So another thing I like about the Trails Committee is Peter Lagoy is the chair for this Trails Committee, and they've always done a great job of working with Boy Scouts and kind of a 2-way relationship there. And this is just some of the bullets here. On the Fruit Street property, they removed a bunch of old automobile tires from the trails on the Fruit Street property in 2016 and 2018. They created a new website spotlighting the trails, and I have a link later on in the presentation for that. And then more recently, they created a couple loop trails on the Hughes Trail, and also they're they built a few bridges. Go ahead, John. You don't need to read this. This is basically, I think I'm going to update this slide to, because we didn't include all the trails committees that we're working with, like Jane's Upper Charles Committee and the Hopkinton Trails Committee. So this slide will just be about working with the 3 or 4 other trails committees. Go ahead, John, please. So now we're starting to look at some of the trails. I think most people are familiar with Center Trail. Jane mentioned it in her presentation. It's the major north-south trail through Hopkinton. It's not extremely long now, but it basically runs from Route 135 to the high school and a little beyond that. Next slide, please. So Cameron Woods is a property. It's not really, there's no trails called Cameron Woods, but it's over near Lake Whitehall. And they have a bunch of trails over there. There's a huge network. If you zoom in on this, you don't have to, John, but when you guys take a look at this. So by the way, all these little screen grabs that I got are from the OpenStreetMaps property. very good about trails, and it's an open source like Wikipedia. So I have gone on there and updated some of the trail names. So it's very good. I find it very good until we get our own mapping if we decide to go that route. But most of the trails over in Cameron Woods are named after colors, yellow, orange, and green. That's the overview on that one, please, John. So, and once again, a lot of these trails, HALT, the Hopkinton Area Land Trust, is another group that we work with. They have a website that's also a link at the end of this slide, but they've done a lot to all these areas, as well as signage and improvements of trails. And so some of this property is HALT. I would say most of it is HALT managed, and some of it's just managed by the town. So these are the two trails that you saw on the southern part of town down in Milford. Jane mentioned the Echo Lake Trail, and over there, the College Rock area. So there's a bunch of trails down in that area as well. Okay, John. So I'm just going to give a trail about 6 or 7 major areas of trails in the town of Hopkinton. We have them all over. Obviously, our mission is to try to connect them. So the Deer Run and the Brook Hollow and the Judy Wiley trails are all located on the eastern side of town, over on the Ashland line. Once again, HALT has done a good job with these trails, and they have a website, and they show us more info on all these trails. You can take a deep dive into them. Lots of good walking areas. I have not had the pleasure of walking any of these 3. I have a lot of the others in town, but I plan to get to these. Okay, John. All right, and I think this might be the last trail I'm going to talk about, but this is the Hughes Trail, and Jane mentioned it as well. This is over near, I think it's Deer Run Road, right off of Hayden Row, just beyond Cornell's on the other side. So this is an east-west trail. This is the trail that I've seen Peter and the other committee members and the volunteers that they work with the most improvements in the 3 or 4 years that I've been on the committee. They created this trail in 2018. It's right now, it's a little over a half mile, and it goes from Hayden Road to Joseph Road. Like I said, in 2019, the Boy Scouts added a couple of loops. In 2021, it was stone dust was added to the first half, so that's earlier this year. So I think I'm correct in saying that we only really have, and Jane might know better than me, but only 2 stone dust trails right now, which to us is a major wide trail. So that would be Center Trail and Hughes Trail. And I think both of those, Jane mentioned that she's
Echo
going.
Trail.
Oh, an Echo Trail,
Echo
correct.
Lake.
Correct, thank you. Yep, so 3. And actually, great point, because all 3 of them probably be incorporated into the upper trails.
Parts of them will, yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, parts of perhaps not all of them, but definitely parts of them.
Yeah.
At the very least. So that is good. That is what we're trying to do, is establish a major trail, a highway, if you might, as opposed to exits and little back roads.
Connectivity is so important. That's the
Yes.
ultimate goal.
Yes. It's obviously important to a lot of people with all the committees that we have that trying to get things done. So it's great. Okay, John, the next slide, please. So we just talked a little bit about, not a little bit, a lot about trail connections. So a lot of this stuff falls under what Jane's talking about, not so much the Center Trail east to west. I think that's kind of a charge of the committee that I'm part of, where they're trying to do connections to Center Trail from Chamberlain Street through a couple different locations on Field 11, Field 13, and also Chamberlain on the other side to West Main Street. But the second grouping there, the north-south, is really what Jane is working on with the upper trails. You know, all those are north-south that we're just trying to connect different trails. Center to Hughes, to Echo, to Milford. So hopefully that will happen in the near future. Next slide, please, John. So obviously another important part of creating trails is once you get the right connections and the approval, obviously creating the trail itself is a bit of work, but also building bridges. So if I can click, John, I just wanted to show you guys, we have a little bit of documentation on building bridges. You can see an example of one there. Yeah. So this is an example of currently what's going on. We're at Fruit Street. They're looking at building a few bridges, and this is one of the crossings that needs. Can't see it too well, but basically you've all seen a stream in the woods, so you know what it's like to get over. You don't want to get your feet wet walking through it. So go to the next slide, please, John. And this is just some of the specs for an 8-foot section. If I zoom in, what is it? Oh, it's 2 feet wide. So these are the smaller bridges. I think these are the ones that they added over on Hughes property. But we do have wider ones as well for like some of the main trails that Jane was referring to. We'd obviously want like an 8-foot, 10-foot wide path. And next slide, please, John. And this is just an example of the trailhead signs. So this is over at Fruit Street, the Mary Pratt Trail, and this is, if you zoom into it, when you look at it, you can see that's in Hopkinton area, a halt sign, Hopkinton Area Land Trust and Sudbury Valley Trustees. So you'll see a lot of these around town. I've been trying to find all the locations of them. It's a little scavenger hunt that I'm having, and I found like 4 of them, and I didn't realize there was another dozen or so. So Maury from Halt sent me the list, but these are really professional looking signs by Halt. And if you scroll to the next page, John, I think this is a more informal one. It's a town related sign, and this is new to the Hughes Farm Trail. And then I think the last slide I have, John, is just about links. So the first slide is obviously at Halt. They have a lot of great write-ups in all these little sections, and OpenStreetMap is what I use to do the screen grabs, and I refer to it a lot. I'm trying to learn these trails where they are and trying to hike them. And then that NOAA Schonhorn is the Boy Scout site that they put together, which highlights trails as well. And I didn't get a chance to update it, but Peter suggested that I add these. There's a Hopkinton Trails website as well. So they're doing a lot of good things, moving in the right direction, trying to set up some procedures. We all got hit by COVID, so we didn't meet for a while, but we're starting to meet more often again. And I really enjoy being on the Trails Committee because I'm learning about all the trails and where they are. The only downside is the bug. So either hike in the early spring or late fall or winter, or get some good bug spray. But we obviously we're a running town, right? So we want to kind of play off the marathon center coming as well, and having good trail systems around. So that's my presentation. You guys are my guinea pig. This is the first time I presented it, so
well, thank you.
I'm sure Jane has discussed the Upper Charles many times, where we're kind of catching up and getting a little more formalized.
No, that's great. Thank you.
This is great. Thank you, Dave.
Dave, this was an awesome presentation. Very nice, very informational, and actually very professionally done.
Oh, thank you.
Very nice. Yeah, this is great.
Great work by both of you.
And Jane, is Jane's map or maps also on the admin file?
I think, yes, they are.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you know, there were far too many years I was here that I was not aware of almost any of these trails. Too bad it took me so long.
Well, it's funny, Jamie is also on the committee. And so 2 of us are really new to the committee, and we're working with these guys that have been working on these trails and know the town inside out. They hike them all the time. And so they said that we're kind of a new breath of fresh air because we have to slow them down. Okay, where are you talking about? What part of town? What's the name of the trail?
Definitely.
No, we have a lot of beautiful resources in this town. We're very fortunate.
Indeed.
Ariel, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to suggest to both Jane and Dave that they make some time on the select board calendar to give the town an update. I really think that it was great. And I think that the town would be really interested to hear where you are and how much progress has been made and what the near term and long term goals are. It was awesome.
Yeah, we try and get up there every other year, but I think we're about due. Thank you. We'll check that out.
And we're going to tag onto your coattails, Jane.
I think that this back to back is great because so many people get confused of the 2 different things and what we hear. But having us both here at the same time helps clarify a lot of questions that people might have had.
I agree. Otherwise, you end up getting questions like, yeah, but what about the bike trail? What about the, it's not like,
They're very two separate entities, both necessary and both useful, and
And I will say there's a little bit of a dilemma because some people want the paved trails and they want the formalness of it, and some people want to keep it more woodsy with the gravel trails. So that is an ongoing discussion.
I think it's really important to remember, though, that there's room for everybody.
Yeah.
And just this presentation tonight shows that we have so much just open space and just, clear single paths and double paths and stone dusts, which comes under TCMC. And in the near future, we'll have something a little bit more formal, hopefully.
And I think we're going to keep both styles of trails, right? Jane is
I
focusing
think
on
so.
the wide, the wide, more formal trails where we have a ton of informal trails that are small paths, right? Typical
Right.
of what you go through the woods. So we're not looking to replace all the trails.
No, we're working to work together, and I think we all envision having all of these spur trails, such as the TCMC works on, coming off of the Upper Charles Trail and tying in all of these neighborhoods together, and making a benefit for, our whole community. So I think we really complement each other very well.
thank you
Thank you,
both so
David.
much.
You're welcome.
Okay,
There's
we
room for everybody.
yep, there sure is.
Yeah.
We have one last agenda item, and that is our minutes of June 21st. Does anyone have any edits to the minutes?
Yeah, I'd like to get with Stephanie and refine a little bit of my statement about the design review board. There's just a few, it's sort of sentence structure kinds of things that I think could use a little improvement.
Sure. Should we hold off on voting on the minutes then until next time?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
We can do that.
Okay. Is that okay, Stephanie?
See, through chair, Deb, if you want to reach out, or I'm in the office, or email me.
Yeah, I will. I started to look at it kind of late on today. So I've sort of looked at kind of some rewording of it. So yeah, let's get together and put it and try to put together some simple language.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So before we close, just a reminder that we need 5 signatures on an A&R at the office tomorrow. Okay. We have a site visit on August 7th at 9:30 a.m. at the Wilson Street. And our next meeting is on August 9th. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay. All
So
right.
to you, the chair, I think that John should give rewards for the first 5 people to come in with a signature, like candy or something
Tootsie
like
Rolls,
that.
yeah.
$100 card.
So I have candy in my desk all the time. All you guys
Okay,
have to do is just come in and take it.
Okay, if I
I'll
get into
make
the-
sure I've got plenty of candy home. I'll bring a bag of candy to work tomorrow. And
I
first
was
5.
thinking of bringing some of mine and leaving it with you.
That's a good idea. Okay, rewards for the first 5 people. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Dave Paul. Go ahead, Deb. Deb moved it. Dave Paul will second it.
Thank you. And Jane,
Jane Moran, yes.
Dave,
Dave Paul, yes.
Shahadil,
Aidul Manan, yes.
Sundar,
Narasimhan, yes.
Fran,
Randy Young, yes.
Deb,
Deborah Feinberg, yes.
Gary,
Gary Trundle, yes.
and Mary Larson Marlowe, yes. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Go Rupert.
Great
Watch
meeting.
the
Good job,
Olympics.
Mary.
Thanks,
Watch the
Bye.
Olympics.